The more you focus on the negative things that happen, the more your brain will filter out the good.
Have you ever bought a new car and then end up seeing that same exact model everywhere you go? Or maybe you had an argument and, with your spouse.
Yeah.
That part's important. And then suddenly it seems like everything they do irritates you.
It's irritating.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. And there's a part of your brain, we're going to talk about it, and that affects directly how these things affect your lives and will affect your marriage.
Yeah, because the truth is, just because you bought a car, it doesn't mean there are more of those cars suddenly on the road.
Exactly.
And what it does mean, though, is you're noticing more of them. And like you're saying, there's a reason for that. And I think, honestly, with this episode, this is like a key to unlocking, like a place you very well may be stuck at in your marriage. This is a key to all of a sudden be able to understand what's happening instead of getting so frustrated with one another, with yourself.
Right.
And seeing things so negatively all the time even. And so I think this is going to be there's going to be some freedom, I think, that comes from this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with that. Because look, we've got a mechanism in our brain, right? It's a Reticular Activating System. Let's jump in. And okay.
RAS.
RAS. Its job is to filter information out for you.
And you're getting tons of information.
Tons. Millions. Millions of pieces of information a second.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. It's great. So we can't take in consciously that much information. That's the challenge. So we have to have something that's going to go ahead and filter this out. This marvelous, miraculous, miracle brain that we've been given, super computing,
designed with intention.
Yeah, quantum computing. Like there's nothing like it, right? We were not able to match it. So that's a wonderful thing, right? The challenge is it's also pretty dumb and only knows what we tell it.
Yeah. It's very trainable.
Yeah.
And that's the part that RAS, it is a very trainable part of your brain. It kind of operates like a spotlight operator. It goes around scanning, and then it will shine the light on the thing that your brain has been taught matters the most.
Right. So if you tell your brain, hey, this is what's important to me, this is how things are, your brain's on your side. So it goes, okay, that's what's important. That's how things are. So I'm going to take that information, and that's what I'm going to give to you. That's what I'm going to provide to you. The other stuff, well, we'll throw it out. You don't need that.
We don't need it.
You don't need that. And another part of the thing is your brain's job is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
If you hold your breath until you pass out, your brain will make you start to breathe again. I know that's really weird.
Yeah, no, but it's true.
It's true. So your brain, it's doing all sorts of functions, the breathing, heart rate, blood, all sorts of things that are going on that has nothing to do.
Survival.
All about survival. You don't have to do a thing in order to make it happen. In fact, you can't do a thing in order to make it happen. So with that in mind, we have the reticular activating system that kind of works in conjunction with that. So if you're telling it certain things about life and about threats, and we'll get into that, it takes that information and it uses that. So if you're starting to say, and this is where for marriage, if you're saying my spouse doesn't care about me, well, then your brain goes, oh, okay.
Yeah.
If that's what you tell me.
Not only that, it believes it, but it starts looking for evidence to make it true.
Exactly.
And that's where, like, going back to seeing the cars on the road, you get this new car, and now all of a sudden, you're feeling special about this new car and all that. Now you're noticing.
I got a new car.
Yes,
but
and you're
everybody
noticing
else has that car.
all the same cars out on the road. And so it's also not a matter of, what you just tell your brain, because some of that is happening, subconsciously. Some of it has happened through traumas in our life.
Sure.
This is a part of your brain that is very heavily influenced emotionally. Like it is influenced by fear, by stress, even good things. It's influenced by goals and repetition, your habits, your beliefs, and all of your emotional experiences. And now some of those things, I would almost say most of those things, are things that happen to us.
Right.
They're in our childhood. They're in our relationships. They're in our disagreements, and how our conflict goes dictates what this system does.
Sure.
If this conflict experience was really painful for me because you started name calling or blaming,
Right.
or things like that, my brain, this system is now going to go, he doesn't care about me. Let me start collecting evidence.
Right.
Beyond the conflict.
Yeah, it decides what gets your attention. So so what gets ignored, and what feels important. So if you especially threats, and that's where it ties into, it keeps you alive. If you have threats, okay, well, how do I avoid those threats? How do I make sure that stuff doesn't happen to me? How do I see what I'm looking for, so that way I can focus on what's kind of what we're telling it is important. These soundtracks, we'll use a soundtrack that we're playing over and saying, okay, this is what's important. And our brain is just really trying to do the best job it can in helping support us in our mission.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like, this is a system that works great if you're hiking in the woods and a snake comes out.
Sure.
And now next month when you go hiking again, you're on guard. Your brain is looking and scanning for snakes. That's a great thing. But when you're in a marriage every single day, multiple hours in every day with this person who behaved maybe like a snake, and now your brain is doing the same thing, but it's not just, next month when we go for the hike again. It's no, in the next half an hour, at night when you come home, in the morning when we get up, it's scanning and looking for ways to stay safe again.
Sure, absolutely. And also, if just going back to that idea about growing up and things like that, it could happen in your relationship. It could have happened earlier, right? If you got used to feeling rejected and criticized, right? And that's going to be something that's even, it'll filter even the slightest criticism. It doesn't have to be a real criticism. It just has to be, it feels like a slight or something like that, where that will get activated and it will get highlighted.
Yeah.
They'll go, ooh, look at that. That's what we've seen before. Watch out.
Right. And I will share a story. It's not even really a story. I will share personally of the most ridiculous way this happens in my own life. This is almost every night, not every night, but we play Mario Party a lot together.
Didn't know where you're going with it.
I know, I know, right? Yeah, no, I'm not ratting on you for anything, but we will play Mario Party, and it's fun. What is it? What's it even called? It's just Superstars. So you gain these stars and you get these coins along the way. Almost every night when we play,
I know where you're going.
if somebody, and it's not even him, steals a character, a computer character, steals a star from me or steals my coins, I'm instantly going, this always happens to me. I never get a chance. They don't ever touch your stuff. I call him the golden boy of Mario Party. Like, they're always coming after me. And it's like, that is from my past. Now I'm able to get over it and move through it. And we'll talk about that as well. But that's what happens because there's this filter in the background that I always have bad things happen to me.
Yeah.
That things get taken from me, that there's this unfairness that happens. And I grew up as the family scapegoat, and that was really difficult. And because of that, like, a lot of blame for everything was put on me, and it was always come after me. And so now, like, a stupid, non-existent character steals my star, and, like, I feel deep betrayal. I'm like, it always happens. And so in a silly little way.
Right there. That's what, it always happens.
Yes. Yeah. And so we really need to be on guard for that. And that's how I was sharing that, yes, I work through that. And just because I still get triggered by that does not mean that I have not healed in that area.
Good point.
It's just something that gets triggered again, because not being triggered, it can't be the goal. It can't be the goal, and you don't want it to, because if that's the goal, then your brain's not functioning the way that God designed it to function.
Sure.
But where their healing is at, and we may touch on this again, but I do just want to throw it out there, where there's healing is how much we're being triggered, how we're working through that trigger, and how much that trigger, like, throws us off. And can we get through it faster than I could have?
Yeah, I guess another way of saying that is, when we get triggered, how reactive do we get?
Yeah.
Right? Are we being as reactive as we've been in the past?
Yeah.
Or are we becoming less and less reactive and more responsive?
Yeah, I'm not throwing my remote anymore.
Not rage quitting.
That's what we call it, rage quitting. Yes.
No, that's funny. Well, I was even thinking of another example, because this is something we hear a lot, where spouses will say, well, I do these things. She asked me to do, well, husbands will say that. She asked me to do these things, and she says she wants that, but then she says I never do it, or she never remembers that. So why even bother? Why do these things if all I hear is I don't ever do those things? And they get into arguments going, well, no, I did it here, and I did it there, and I did it that, and did that. And so usually it's like, well, when did you do that? I don't remember you doing that. And so that's part of the reticular activating system.
Yeah.
That's part of the thing that's throwing out some of this other stuff, not because you don't care.
Right.
Not because it doesn't matter, but just because the filter hasn't changed enough. Yeah. It hasn't hit enough. So look, my recommendation to husbands when they say that, I always tell them the same thing. Do it more. Do it more. Don't get all helpless and throw your hands and bend out of shape. I mean, recognize that this is a long-term thing. And if you're doing it with the right heart, you're not just doing it to get the immediate appreciation.
Yeah.
You're doing this because you're investing, because you're doing it for them, because you love them.
Yeah.
And so you're feeding into this, and it's okay for you to have discussions and for it to bring to mind. And so that way you could talk through it and go, oh, okay, yeah, I do that. And so that way we can start to adjust the RAS. Right. But don't get thrown off just because the other person doesn't seem like they're appreciating it. It's just that it might not getting through the filter.
Right. And that's where I was saying in the very beginning how I hope this can unlock some things for you.
Yeah.
Because that's not your spouse not appreciating you or not noticing. It's just a brain function that is going, the good stuff he's doing right now, that's not what I'm highlighted on because I'm still trying to self-protect. And so I'm looking at the negative. And so to your point, the more positive that gets input, that's how you heal, because this isn't a broken part of your brain. It's not a damaged part. No. It is a trained part.
Yeah.
And the same thing can work for good. And so if you're somebody who is focused on growth, and that's your driving factor, you've got good goals, you have good expectations, things that can happen, you will start to see things that fit in that filter. You will start to hear affirmations and encouragement. You will notice progress instead of noticing that didn't work.
Yeah.
This is never going to work.
Sure.
You will start to look for solutions. So you'll find affirmation and confirmation of the good just as much as you'll find that for the negative.
Right. Absolutely. And just while we're on that, I was just thinking about that. Some of the stuff that I mentioned soundtracks, right? Some of the things we're playing over and over in our head or saying to ourselves, this is the stuff that feeds the RAS. This is the stuff that it's looking out for. So if we say that it's never going to work, if we say it's always like this, we're always fighting, I'm never enough, or my best isn't good enough, all those kind of things, my spouse dismisses me, right? There's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
That's the things it's listening for. And the higher threat level it is, the higher importance it gives to going, okay, this is the information that I need to return to you that affirms this or recognizes it, because that's where there's more at stake.
Right. And so if you start believing, if you have this belief system that my spouse doesn't care about me, this system will begin collecting evidence to support that belief.
Sure.
And so now what you start noticing is he didn't text me back. He's not looking at me. He's paying attention to his phone.
Right.
His tone of voice just changed, or you didn't hug me. You didn't acknowledge things when you came home. I mean, I was
just laughing, or he didn't text me with the right emojis.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like I will feel it on a small scale, like even getting ready in the morning. Like this poor guy has like 0.2 seconds to tell me if I look cute or not before I'm like, well, what do you think? How come you didn't say that I looked cute this morning? Ridiculous things. Now, praise God, these things no longer turn into arguments for us. But I feel that system going off. And then when he does tell me, I was just getting ready to say that.
I was waiting for you to take the towel off your head.
Yeah. Yes, that is so true. It's so true. Those positive, events, those positive connections, that's what starts retraining this part of your brain.
Well, it's those connections. It's that relationship that starts to say, hey, there's safety here. And so we can reclassify and remove some of these as being threats. And so now we don't have to be aware of them. We don't have to keep them on the high priority list of the 40 things that get through the millions of pieces of information per second.
Yeah.
Right. And if this, look, God was into neuroscience before neuroscience was a thing. Neuroscience, is really a study.
That's the discovery of what God already did and what He already created.
Right. It's like saying astronomy is creating stars, right? Versus the study of stars. Romans 12:2 says that we're to no longer be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds.
Yeah.
Right. So it was important. We're mind, body, and spirit. That's part of the process. It's part of the whole that God created us to be. And and He has a lot to say about our brains and our minds and our focus on that. So it's transformational. Philippians 4:8 says, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's admirable. Get the picture? Are you sensing a theme? If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. It's not about being Pollyanny or pretending the problems don't exist. It's talking about intentional focus. It's talking about making sure that whatever's preoccupying our minds is better thoughts.
Yeah.
Because it's shaping how we process.
Yeah, and the more you focus on the negative things that happen, the more your brain will filter out the good. Now, I'm not going to notice, because you didn't text me back or because you didn't say that I looked cute or whatever. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not going to notice that, you brought me my drink in bed this morning. You did this. You remembered to write this down or pick this up or do this thing, whatever it is.
Right.
I'll stop noticing those things because my brain is fixated on something negative over here.
Right.
And so when we go back to that Philippians verse, that's no joke, a giant deal. If we were to truly live that scripture, our lives would change.
Sure.
Because now we're putting good things into our brain. And again, this isn't like toxic positivity. This isn't manifesting. And all the people believing in manifesting, this is probably why, your big gurus out there who are, hyping it up and all of that.
That's a great point.
To a degree, it works for them. They think it's manifesting. It's not. They're just training their brains in a good way.
Right.
Sometimes overtraining.
They're using scriptural truths the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they're seeing results, but it's the wrong results for the wrong reasons versus the results that God is saying to get.
Yeah.
I was just thinking too, as far as it's not toxic positivity, because if a problem occurs, you're going to notice it.
Yes.
It's going to happen. So it's not about ignoring them either. It's just let's not miss the positive things, the better things in this life, and get so fixated on the negative things.
Right. And that's where, when we do have our arguments, it's important that we also have repair, that we also come back and have connection.
Yeah.
And, thinking of that, because I'm thinking, what's his name? Tony Robbins. That's the kind of guy that was coming to mind. And I'm not slamming on him or anything like
don't
that.
get us in trouble.
But that kind of energy, out there. And even any of these, businesses, these MLMs, most of them have you buy into a system of listening to things, of reading books, of going to the meetings, going to the seminars, because they know that changes your brain.
Yeah, feeds the brain the right information.
Yes. And so, my goodness, if an MLM is doing this, as believers and followers of Christ, we absolutely need to be putting our brains in those places.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was just thinking, because how this does affect our emotions, because it'll affect your emotions. It'll affect your expectations, which we've talked about before, and expectations are big, right? And then, of course, that leads to our reactivity, our reactions, our nervous systems will start to get hijacked, which we're
in survival mode in these moments.
All of this impacts our marriage. All of us impacts our relationships and our ability to be in relationship. Because if we're so fixated on threats and self-protection, we're self-protecting, we can't be connecting.
Right.
Just not going to happen.
Right. And that's where, too, to even take this a little deeper, betrayal and trauma like that is something that dramatically affects this system in your brain.
Yeah.
And so that when that happens, what often happens is we have the victim in the marriage, the one who's been cheated on, completely wrecks everything they believed about their marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very painful. And now they're living on high alert. And these are the couples that are trying to repair. And you'll have the spouse who's pushing, going, okay, it's been 6 months. It's been whatever. I've been doing these things. You need to get over it. This is why they struggle to get over it.
Right.
It's not a choice. It's not necessarily even, I don't trust you. You could be rebuilding trust.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't been for long enough. And so what happens is now when you have that kind of trauma, that kind of pain, your brain is going to filter out the fact of all the little trustworthy things you're doing.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's going to look for, what are you looking at on your phone? Can I check this? Why are you 5 minutes late? All these things that your brain is saying, it might happen again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was looking at you when you were over here. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
No, you're over there now. So, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
But still, just it all just comes flooding back in. So that's a great point. And look, if you're in that situation, there is a special process that is more helpful to walk through that, because there's some highly predictable stages and phases that you need to get through. So please reach out for help. Reach out to us for help. Reach out to somebody for help. It's really not something that most couples can effectively navigate on their own.
Right.
We're talking about betrayal. But going back to just the generality of issues in our marriages and what goes through that. I mean, thinking about 2 Corinthians 10:5, to take every thought captive to obey Christ.
Yeah.
Right. Because not every thought deserves agreement. Right. There's some of our thoughts that are coming through that get through the filter and get presented to us that are distorted, that just they're fear-based, right? We'll have clients saying, well, I think they might end up doing that. And one of the things that we'll do is say, well, rephrase that saying, I fear they might end up doing that. Because that's really what we're telling ourselves. There's this trauma-informed informations, and some of this just is not spiritually healthy. It's just it's holding on to lies and being held captive to lies versus being set free by the truth.
Yeah, and you get stuck in this cycle. And so a cycle that it creates is you'll have the pain that happens, which leads to hypervigilance. And then the hypervigilance leads to a negative interpretation.
Sure.
Because you're collecting evidence for things that are wrong. And now you're going to have an emotional reaction, which is going to lead to more conflict, which is going to lead to more pain. And then we're going to start over and over and over again. And this is where repair and connection comes in and is so important. And if you leave things unsaid, if you leave things undealt with, if you leave apologies off the table, all that stuff, you are training your brain to look for the bad in your marriage.
Yeah, to watch out
and
for.
People will do this for years, and all of a sudden they see absolutely nothing good in their spouse except of a whole bunch of intentions that they've made up, false assumptions, negative things, why you don't do this, they always do this, and it's all negative. And this can happen like from really small little things that can snowball.
Oh, yeah.
Over time.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, Snowball is a great idea, a great concept. I love that because it's not just one incident usually. It's a reoccurring incidents.
It's a training
that start to build this up.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the chronic stuff that'll get us, not the acute stuff. The acute stuff we notice.
Right.
It's the chronic stuff that we're living with over time starts to build up.
Yeah. And then like as individuals, one of you may be living very hyper vigilant, hyper alert. Another one just lives defensively because they think, you know what, like to your point, a few minutes ago, it's like, well, it's not going to be good enough. And I've done all this stuff you're not going to notice anyway.
Sure.
So guess what the knee-jerk reaction to that is? I'm going to quit doing it.
Yeah. Why bother?
And now we have no positive reinforcement. We have no connection that heals. We have no comfort. We have no safety. And I get that it's frustrating.
Sure.
It is frustrating to feel like no matter what I do,
It's hopeless.
right, right. And that's where this episode is so good. This is a great one to sit down together and listen to, re-listen to it. Look for areas where you're believing these things, because at some point, and this is for healthier marriages, it's not for if you really have massive issues in your marriage, get some help with that. But on average, we can't stay stuck on conversations about you're not taking the trash out. Kind of like we talked about last week.
Right.
We've got to wrap those things up. We've got to deal with those things, because if we don't, we will start training our brain to look for every time you don't take the trash out and every time you don't do whatever you said you were going to do. And we create these belief systems, and before you know it, we're living by them. And not only are they reinforcing negative things about our spouse and about our marriage, but they're kicking out anything that is good.
Yeah.
And now we're not noticing the 7 times you did take out the trash. We're highlighting the one. And when you're on the other side of that, that's just as hard.
Right.
It's hard to live hypervigilantly, and it's hard to live defensively. And that's very discouraging. And so what we want you to get out of this too is to go, it's not my spouse just thinking I'm a horrible person.
Yeah.
It's not my spouse being so dramatic and not able to get over anything. No, there is a part in your brain that is running the show, and fear and pain keep fueling it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. None of this is premeditated.
No.
Nobody is going,
No.
oh, I'm only going to look at this bad stuff, and I'm going to throw out any of the good stuff that you're doing. That's not the goal. That's not the ideal of anybody's existence. I
Right.
mean, we all probably know somebody who's just like a negative Nancy, right? Who's just always, seems like they're curmudgeon, right? And, but they're probably not happy about that either.
No.
Right?
Nobody wants to live like that.
They've become entrenched. They haven't taken every thought captive. They haven't listened to Paul in Philippians 4:8 and changed their focus. It's easy to do. And so eventually that negative filter only is pulling in negative. It becomes so reinforcing and so cyclical. It's hard to find the way out of that.
Yeah.
One of the things that plays into this, and I mentioned this distortion, these distorted thoughts, and we're going to highlight a couple of them that almost every couple runs into. And the first one's mind reading. And it's right. We've talked about that. You can't read each other's mind. Right? You just can't. It's just not going to happen. But the problem is we'll have thoughts like, well, he didn't text back quickly enough because he doesn't care. Right?
I know why you're doing that or not doing that.
And then it sets everybody up into this like have to defend ourselves and defend our thoughts. Well, I'm not thinking that. Well, it's just not it's a distortion, right? Another one is catastrophizing, where we'll take a small thing and make it bigger, right? And it's again not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
This is just what we'll find ourselves.
Well, it's me going back to Mario Party. It is a small deal that somebody stole my star on a video game or my coins. But
Why do they always pick on
there
me?
were times where I would make that a big deal.
Yeah.
Like they're out to get me. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Sure.
I'm falling back in old patterns is what I'm doing.
Or becoming reacted by old patterns.
Yes. Yeah.
Another one's discounting positives, and we were talking about this a little earlier. The positive things that come through, well, they just don't match up with what we're seeing, or enough with match up with what we're seeing. So they get thrown out. There's too much information that our brain's trying to take in. Too much, so it just can't
It's going to
process
keep what's most important.
Right.
And sometimes safety and protection is what's most important.
That's what's going to keep you alive. The positive stuff's not necessarily going to keep you alive. It's watching out for the negative stuff. So our RAS it's gathering evidence based off of what we're telling it. Same with negative bias. If you have a bias for negative, that's what we're looking for. And so that positive gets thrown out. So these are just some of the ways that these work in our lives and that we'll see them work out in our marriages. And if you're running into it, there is something you can do. Yeah. There's stuff we're getting there. We're getting there. Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as a man thinks in his heart, so he is." Right? Again, Neuroscience before, like thousands of years before it was a science. It was God. It's God's idea. He's the one who designed it. So it shapes our attitudes. It shapes our posture. It forms our homes, our tones. Again, our perception of what reality is.
Yeah.
If it's something's a distortion, it's off. It's not the truth.
Yeah.
And
even our expectations are shaped by that. And then we start expecting and we're looking out for these things to happen.
Right.
And I mean, we deal with that like counseling couples. So many couples are like, well, I did try that. Or if I do that, they're not gonna listen to that. She won't hear me say that. Whatever it is. It's these expectations. That's just protection. That is just you trying to protect yourself. But the more we get stuck in that and the more we believe that stuff over and over again, and you know what? If it's super unhealthy, it may be true. And then you got to go in a whole different direction and you really got to get some help with that. But for most couples, once you go, you know what? I think maybe she's going to react this way.
Right.
But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to move towards connection. I'm going to lean in, and my actions are going to show that I'm for our marriage and I'm making the effort.
I'm going to do the right thing for the right reason because God asks it of me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The things that will help, because just as you can train the system for looking for those things, you can train it to look for the good. You can flip that system. Again, it's not broken. It's been mistrained.
Yeah. Your brain's always being discipled by something.
Yes. And so talking about the getting good at what you practice, what you talk about, this is it. This is it. And so things that will help retrain, your brains in this are consistent honesty.
Yes.
Be honest with one another, emotionally attuned to one another. Don't have your head in your phone if your wife or your husband is sharing something with you.
Please.
Don't not repair after conflict. You can walk away during it and take a time out, but you need to come back. You need to come back and say, all right, we didn't handle that well. I really want to.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be left on the table, and to have like calm communication, having boundaries.
Healthy, loving boundaries.
Yes, healthy boundaries. Slowing down, reactivity.
Yeah.
Calling the time out, going, hey, I am not in a place where I can have this conversation. I am too frustrated. I'm too emotionally dysregulated. I'm overwhelmed. I'm too mad at you. Be honest.
Yeah.
But we will talk about this later. I just need some time. And also it is training yourself to notice, you know what? I'm going to start acknowledging and thanking him every time he takes the trash out. I'm going to start noticing. I'm going to know when he puts gas in the car, when he gets up early, when he starts the coffee, or when she, does whatever this thing is. I am going to wake up. This is where the power of gratitude comes in. Again,
huge.
Very biblically accurate. God talks a lot about gratitude and how much it can change our brains and our hearts. So waking up going, I am going to train my brain. I don't care if it's one dumb, ridiculous thing. I am going to look for something good that you're doing.
I'm going to train it to start looking for that.
Yes.
Even if it's something as much as I pulled open my sock drawer and there are clean socks in there.
It's a miracle how that happens.
It is a miracle. It's manna from heaven. There's clean socks, right? And being thankful for that.
Yeah.
John Acuff, author, he's got a book out there. It's called Soundtracks. He has a very, I think, accessible way is probably a way of putting it. It's cognitive challenging or cognitive restructuring, but how he puts it is, I think, makes it a lot more sense for most people. And he's got a couple different steps. The first step is to ask if it's true. When you have a thought, when it gets released over to you, one of the things to do, especially if it's getting you worked up and making you want to be reactive.
And you feel that in your body. This is all nervous system work as well.
Yeah, when you're feeling like you want to become reactive, the first thing that you do, like you said, in your body, ask, is this true? Is this true? My spouse never listens to me. They never take out the trash. They always do this, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
Right? Because look, if you're doing always or nevers, one exception breaks the rule.
Right.
Right.
And we will kick out that exception.
Yeah.
And how I know we do that is because we keep using the term always or never.
Exactly. That's a great point.
I will sit there with Mario Party. I always get my star stolen. You never get yours stolen.
You always come at the 10th turn and just get all your stars. She wins almost every single game we play. Across the board. I think it's maybe 20-80 as far as how many I win versus her. Anyway, point being is, so if you're thinking, hey, my spouse never listens to me, just I guess yourself, really, is that true? Are there any moments that maybe that you're feeling unheard, but are there moments where they actually do step in and address it honestly? And then ask this, because some of this might be true, but is it helpful?
Yeah.
Because just because it's true, just because your feelings got hurt, doesn't mean that it's helpful. And certainly replaying it over and over 40 times in your head, that's not helping healing.
No.
In fact, it re-triggers our system into releasing the adrenalines and the cortisols and all the negative stuff. And it's as much as if we were in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's not helpful to yourself nor the relationship.
Yeah.
Ruminating just deepens injury.
It does. It does. And assuming negative intent, is something that we do a lot as well. And I mean, that's just reinforcing.
Yeah.
That's just training the brain
it's not helpful.
for this.
Not helpful. Look, your spouse, you married them because they have a good heart.
Right.
So just assume that their heart is good and that just their delivery is stinking.
Right. And that, I mean, the reality is, when you have these wounds in your marriage, which you do because you're two humans living together under one roof, but a wounded brain will become very good at finding more wounds. And what happens is a wounded brain becomes very good at finding more wounds.
Right.
And if you don't recognize that is what's happening, you start living in this negative filter that feels completely true.
Right. Yeah.
So the lie now becomes truth. You're living as if it's truth. And so when you start seeing, hey, this is what's going on, I personally need to take control of this and start asking myself those questions.
Right.
Is it true? What is going on? Even, is there another option here? Could something else be happening? Could they have not taken out the trash because they actually just forgot?
Sure. So we need to start telling ourselves, replace some of these thoughts. So instead of we're doomed, right?
Yes.
Just we're struggling. That's honest. You could be honest about that. But struggle's not the same as hopelessness.
Right. And, I want to say that too, because that's my responsibility in it, as it's yours. But then as spouses, we have a responsibility as well to see this isn't my spouse going off of me to hurt me or to come attack me or come at me, whatever it is. This might just be this brain system. They're caught in a loop right now.
Yeah.
And so now my role is to lean in with some of those good behaviors, some of the reassurances, the staying engaged and not walking away. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm going to kind of let this come full circle a little bit, and then we can have a conversation.
Right.
So we both have personal responsibility in this that moves towards healing. Instead of, here's the negative bias that comes out, now I'm going to defend it. And all of a sudden point out all these negative, or all these flaws that you have.
Right.
And now we're in this awful cycle that is it's reinforcing being stuck there.
Yeah. No, we just got to remember, my spouse isn't against me, right? You're just imperfect people who are learning how to do things better.
Right.
And not always getting it right. Just these little things we start to replace. It doesn't have to be monumental, and it certainly needs to stay true. My spouse just called me a name, but they're a loving spouse. Maybe not right now. Maybe they're not displaying their love so well right now because they're struggling.
Yeah.
Right. Those little things that we start to change in our minds and start to challenge that, so we could start challenging the filter, and our filter could start to then look at information differently.
Yeah.
And then we want to turn those thoughts into action. That's probably one of the biggest things, because our feelings should follow action. Right? Emotions follow motion. So we want to so instead of thinking we're disconnected, take a step and initiate some prayer together.
Yeah.
Right? Ask a better question. Maybe instead of why are you sitting so far away from me? Maybe ask, hey, would you like to scoot closer to me?
Yeah.
little things like that. Go for a walk. I mean, apologize, people.
No, for real. For real.
Apologize. Watch your toes. So things like that. But just start doing that and then repeat it.
Yeah.
Right? Repeat this.
Is
Starts
it training?
We have to take every thought captive to hold it obedient. Right? Hold it obedient. Which not just push it down. We gotta wrestle with it until it's obedient to Christ. And so we got to take some actionable steps, and you can. There's steps you can take in order for that to happen and for changes to take place.
Yeah.
It might not be overnight, but the changes will start to take place.
And that's it. And noticing, like, I have to redirect the things I'm thinking about, the belief systems that I have. And so even as simple as every day, like we were saying, I'm going to appreciate one thing. I'm going to notice one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to find something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Feels all cheesy, but it is not. Gratefulness does such powerful work in your brain. And look for repair attempts. When you do have disconnection, when you do have the arguments, bring in some lightheartedness. Like you said, grab hands and go for a walk.
Yeah.
That will reconnect you. Help out, help one another out, ask questions. What's really happening here? Just re-engage and try again. If you butcher your conflict, circle around and go, wow, that was really bad.
Yeah, we really crashed and burned on that one.
Yes,
why
that
don't we
was
try
bad.
again?
And to your point, like for crying out loud, pray together.
Yeah.
Lord, we don't know what we're doing. It's like, would you help us to have grateful hearts?
Yes.
Would you help us to notice the good in one another? Would you help me to start seeing my spouse as a whole person, as your son?
Amen.
Help me to love them well and to notice them well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of praying, well, we go
Yes,
ahead and
go
go to the
ahead.
Lord in prayer now. Father God, we are so grateful that you have created us, mind, body, and spirit. That you've created us in such a way to help us to survive and to stay alive. And we know that sometimes in being in a sin-scarred, broken world, that things will go haywire. And even more so, we know that the enemy would just love to affect your creation in ways and try to distract us, try to work against us. And that they would that he would love for couples to rehearse hopelessness until it feels like the truth. But we know that your word just calls us to renew our minds and take every thought captive and intentionally dwell on what is true. And so we just pray that you'll just help us to focus on you, your heart, and your truth, and that we start to apply these things into our lives, into our marriages, and into our relationships, so that way we can just glorify you and just bring you all the honor. And so in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So give each other some grace with
Please.
this. Give each other some grace. Give each other some help. Quit believing the worst about your spouse. Quit noticing the worst about your spouse. Your brain is always learning what to search for. And how it learns is by what you teach it. And if you have problems and struggles in your marriage, get them worked on.
Yeah.
If you need help, if you need encouragement, or if you just need to start doing the things you know you need to start doing, do those things, because staying stuck in this cycle will just keep you stuck, and you will just notice more and more negative. And so those problems will snowball. And the same thing for the good. Start noticing the good, because if your brain is going to focus on what you prioritize there, start making it good things. Start noticing them. Start being grateful. So with that, remember, when you get that trigger, when you feel that blood pressure rising up, when you feel that thing, when someone steals your star,
Or your coins.
and you start saying they always do this, stop and go, is it actually true? Do they always do this?
Right.
And could there be another explanation? Could something else be happening? Could you have snapped at me because you've had a horrible day at work and it has nothing to do with me? Is there another explanation? And am I reacting to the moment?
Yeah.
Or am I reacting to something that happened either way back in childhood or last week when you didn't take the trash out, or whatever that situation is.
Sure.
So put other options on the table, but it is your responsibility. God gave you the responsibility to control your mind. And when you surrender it to Him and when you focus on all that is good, He is the God who renews things.
Thank you, Lord.
So He will do His part. When you start doing yours, He's going to be right there to change everything.
Yes.
So take this, apply it in your marriage, and we'll talk to you later.